Majority of times I had a chance to meet some Russian writers, philosophers. The conversation, wanted I or not, went in that direction. For instance, when I first time I met Mikhail Riklin, his wife Anna Mikhailchuk was officially missing. When we met second time, she was officially dead, and just a few months after she published a very critical book on the Putin's regime.
Mm-hmm.
On the other hand, when I was trying to interview Edward Limonov that you mentioned before, which was, I don't know, do you follow that? He's not really beloved in these areas because of his engagement in Bosnia and Croatia, and he's aggressively taking the side of Serbian Milosevic regime. He refused to answer almost all questions regarding politics. So, I mean, there is a very strong political key in the Russian cultural scene, in the Russian politics, and that brings us to the question of politics and modus vivendi between them, and also the questions of censorship, it's not really anymore maybe the Cold War terminology of free or transitional terminology of free speech, and maybe that might be the question, the influence of the politics to the politics of everyday life.
I think that in general, Russian poetry in the end of this decade is very well politically articulated. So, and what is the basis of this political articulation? What does it mean to be politically articulated in the contemporary situation? I think that what has happened now, it is the demand for the construction of the new political subjectivity beyond the well-known dialectics which you had mentioned. The dialectics between the totalitarian and libertarian dissidents and power, democracy and autocracy, stability and instability, so the globalized power and local power. The question challenge how to construct the political subjectivity beyond this dialectic, but inside the poetical expression, which is very unstable, very aggressive. And one of the main goals of my research is to, in some ways, to point out where this new political subjectivization emerges. I think that this political subjectivization appears in the break inside strong subjectivity itself. It means that if you could find in yourself the breach which is not fulfilled by the common ideological content, which is absolutely could not be healed by any ideological rhetorics, it means that this breach is the emerging point for this new political subjectivity. And the new form which I could see for the emerging of this subjectivity, I prefer to call the poetry of direct action. What does it mean? It means that in classical aesthetics, usually the emotional reaction of the poets is postponed according to the real event. The classical form of poetry is the elegy, and it means that the poet is mourning. Is mourning something that was in the past. And the main tension in the contemporary Russian literature, not only in poetry but also in the prose, this is the work of the mourning. the mourning of something which was lost in the Soviet past, in the Russian imperial past, in the 90s, and something like this. The idea of this new political writing is to cancel this delay between the event and its emotional understanding in the poetical form. If something happened in the reality, like this or that example of the injustice, arrest of this or that activist, or the imprisonment, this that lawyer was illegally imprisoned. So the poem will be written immediately after this event. My idea that this poetry of direct action is based on the three levels. The first level, this is the level of the concrete information which is inscribed in the poem. The first level is the level of the emotional relation of the poet for this event. And the third level, this is the level of the truth. On the basis of this informational and emotional level, poet could form his own truth procedure, his own model of the truth, of the no political truth, which will be the way to construct the new political subjectivity.
Well, we maybe have some question from the audience. Anything?
You have a specific way of reading the poems. Is it on purpose or?
I think this is the mixture of the classical Russian tradition of the reciting, and also my own, but it's also a lot of the debates between Russian and American poets about the way of recital. Because in Russian poetical traditions established this manner to recital in a very prophetic, solemn manner. So the poet speaks from the sacred mountain, somewhere from the point of absolutely inaccessibility, and it means that the poet speaks about his celestial, eternal experience, this is spiritual experience. And in American tradition, poet will read the poem written on the paper, and he will be absolutely equal to the audience and speak about his own human experience. And what I would like to stress in my own reading, at first this is my adherence to this Russian tradition of classical this prophetical reading, because in some ways I'm the product of this religion, but also very critical and parodical attitude towards it. So it's like the parody of your own tradition inside, and also the instrumentalization at once.